Well, my next guest is a Platinum Top 50 Austin realtor. I want to welcome back onto the American Dream, Paul Redham with Homesville Real Estate. Paul, thank you so much for being back on the show.
And thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you on with us, Paul. Tell me a little bit about how the Central Austin market is doing right now. Is it still as hot as ever?
It is as hot as ever. We're actually doing a little bit stronger this year than we have in years past. It's a hot market. We listed a home very recently on Friday, and on Saturday we had multiple offers and selected one, and that's just starting to be common around here again.
Is there any sign of interest rates slowing? Is there any relief?
Well, yeah, so when interest rates went up, we saw a little bit of a lag in the market, but it feels like everybody's accepted where interest rates are, and it even feels like people are starting to step in a little bit more into the market as they're expecting interest rates to continue to go up.
What about property taxes? Do you expect that those will also continue to go up?
Oh, sure. I think that's a certainty. They'll continue to go up over time. You know how that works. But the big thing that we're seeing this year from the property tax hike is that investors are starting to call us and ask us, what should we do? Should we sell and buy stuff elsewhere? How should we rejigger our portfolio? Because what's happened is taxes are getting high enough to where their income is starting to lag because they have to pay the taxes.
So what advice do you give them when investors are calling you saying, look, we're nervous, we don't want to keep paying these increasing interest rates? What do you say?
Sure. Well, if they're nervous and they want to get out, one of the things we like to do is what's called a 1031 exchange. But for them to get that advice from us, there's a couple of criteria we really look for. Like, I want you to have at least 50% equity in your property, because then you're not leveraged enough anyway. And you might want to stay put, because, you know, paying high property taxes isn't all bad. That means you're in a great location. That means that your property is more valuable. So it really depends on the client, depends on what their goals are and where they're headed.
What about people, Paul, that come to you say that, you know what, I want to buy a home, I want to be involved in the real estate market, but I don't want to buy at the height of the market. I feel like it might crash or at least dip down a little bit, and I'm going to wait.
Sure. Well, I tell them a couple of stories of people who did that and ended up pulling the trigger right as things started to go down. I also like to go back in time and take a look at like a 30-year cycle of real estate in Austin. And if you take a look at those charts, what you really see is that there's only been 2 times where we've lost equity. Once in this last downturn from, 2009 to 2012, and then before that in the 80s. So usually when we have a slowdown, we still see an increase in property values and an increase in appreciation. It's just slower.
Sure. And I've always heard that if you're looking to invest in real estate, if you want to weather the market no matter what it's doing, be prepared to hang on to a property for at least 10 years. Do you subscribe to that?
I do. I give people a minimum of a 5-year time horizon. You know, markets work in cycles, and they tend to go up 4 years and then flat 4 years and then up 4 years. And I like people to at least have the ability to get to the next cycle.
Well, Paul, before I let you go, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about a beautiful listing that you have. Tell me a little bit about this home.
Yes, ma'am. Well, this is just a wonderful home. It's right in the middle of Central Austin. It's very walkable to a lot of great stuff. It's close to a very popular elementary school, and you can walk to restaurants and shops, and we're super excited about the listing.
Absolutely. Well, Paul Redham, thank you so much for being back on with us. Great advice, as always.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you.
And we will be right back with more of the American Dream.